Welcome back to Let's POC, just
Yeah.
two authentic men. Today, three, chatting about how to persevere, overcome, and conquer.
Yeah. Amen. Well, today we got just a great guest, retired FBI special agent Jeremy Rebmann. Jeremy, man, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, brother.
I know you just got done with a book not too long ago, and the audio book, and you got a tour going on, or like you just got a lot of stuff going on. Plus, you are just you just have a lot of things that you do, anyways,
Yes,
which is great. Which hopefully we'll talk about today. But how are things?
I'm doing great. Excited to be on the show and get to talk to you guys today.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, busy for a retired guy, right?
Yeah, that is always an issue. Making
Are
myself busy routinely. Yeah, yeah.
you still shooting and flying and all that?
I'm shooting and flying and putting a runway on my back prairie for,
Really?
oh yeah. I'm gonna put a hangar out there and start flying out there and right next to my range. I just can't
Yeah,
stop. I can't stop doing stuff.
yeah.
So yeah.
Now, are you still doing volunteer work for charity work?
I do. Yep, I do. I stock for our Daily Bread and Table College Ministry, Safe Families Care Portal. Love all those ministries.
Yeah, that's great. Well, hopefully one day I'll get to land on your back 40 or
Yeah,
whatever out there.
yes.
Do some shooting. Well, as I'd like to introduce you to everybody, I try to give backgrounds. On my other podcast, I do that. And I just recently interviewed you about your law enforcement career. And so I want to do the same thing here to kick us off, just so the audience members know who you are. Jeremy was raised in a college town by a single mother. He graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy and served as a sortie generation officer and a special agent captain in the United States Air Force Office of Special Investigations, and was assigned to AFSOC, which is Air Force Special Operations Command. While in OSI, Jeremy was recruited by the FBI, where he served for 23 years as a special agent, 21 of those years as a SWAT operator, assault team leader, lead medic, senior firearms instructor, and sniper team leader. Jeremy was also awarded the FBI Shield of Bravery for his actions on Glass Mountain, which is detailed in your book. Send Me, Chronicles of an FBI Sniper. Great read. I really enjoyed, and I listened to it as well. I couldn't get enough of it. After completing 32 years of government service, Jeremy still actively competes in several shooting sports and provides firearms training to police and armed citizens. Jeremy is the author of Send Me, Chronicles of an FBI Sniper, which is available now on Amazon. And for more information, we'll put some links at the end of this video, but you can go to www.fbisniper.com. You can also pick up his book on Amazon and audiobook version as well. You can listen to, and you're the author that reads the story as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. I read it in my own dumb voice.
I
Yeah.
thought you did a really good job.
Thanks,
I thought it
man.
was good.
I especially liked it when you were doing other characters.
That's right. That was pretty good. Jeremy has served in medical mission trips in Mexico, Ghana, Uganda, Togo, Ecuador, Haiti, and Nicaragua as a doer of the word of God and follower of Jesus Christ. Amen. He volunteers at his church, local shelters, food banks, and serves in lay counselor ministry. Jeremy, brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So good to have you. So, uh, there's a lot to talk about your career for sure, and people can read your book about your story and the people that you worked with all those years. But if you could set it up a little bit for us about your faith and your testimony and what that looks like for you during your career and now.
So I guess my testimony would probably be that I grew up in a broken home. That's a dramatic word, but my folks split when I was 2. And I only got to see my dad really on the summers just because we lived so far apart. My mom was and is a Christian and taught me about Jesus. And my dad, who's a college professor, was agnostic with Buddhist tendencies. I would spend my summers with this PhD educated man breaking down for me that there is no God, And the only reason I believe in God was because I was weak and I needed a crutch, because I didn't understand that we're nothing but dust and that there's nothing after this life but death. And then I would go home and my mom would speak the word into my life.
Truth.
So, yeah. So all through my formative years, I'm trying to figure out what's true on my own. Not that I don't trust people in my life, but the two people I trusted most disagreed on the most important thing for me and for all of us. So I think my testimony might be that I grew up through high school, college, reading every book of faith I can get my hands on. I read the Book of Mormon and the Quran, the Old Testament, the New Testament, Pearl of Great Price, and nothing was cohesive and repeatable and trustworthy like the Bible, that told stories about its own stories and that was historically accurate. And like the historicity of the Bible is remarkable. Even if you
Yes.
don't believe in God at all, it's the
Yes.
most remarkable history book we have.
Yeah.
So I kind of found my faith on my own. I remember telling my favorite aunt that I don't care what's true as long as I believe what's true. I told her, and kind of made her mad. I said, I don't care if I don't end up being a Christian, if Christianity is not true. And after just searching on my own, the thing that screamed truth was Christianity. And so that's where I pointed my life after that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that there is more than to our faith than just faith. There's historical aspects of it that are so true, and you can go see them. You can go read about them. It's amazing. That's great to hear.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear somebody who's like looked and searched, right, across like multiple places. And so like I think that really makes a difference in people's lives when, versus like myself, I grew up like in the church my entire life and I never like even thought about anywhere else, right?
Mhm.
But when I've had close friends who, even people who were like very agnostic for lots of their life, and they kind of finally had that moment of like, hey, I got to figure this out and start to really research and really like convince themselves. I think it's a really interesting aspect. That's good. So, Jeremy, why don't you tell us just kind of, if you were to take 2 minutes and try to highlight Send Me, give us like the snapshot so that you can kind of get the all 77 viewers excited.
Well, and that Bible verse is so well, it's been propagated and proliferated in the law enforcement community and the military community, but not a lot of people really truly believe that. It sounds good. It's a nice buzzword. It's a good, sentence to put. But what does that really mean for you?
Well, so to address your first question, the book was really, it started as my journal over 23 years in FBI and 21 of those on the SWAT team. So the centerpiece of my FBI career was SWAT, and I loved it. And after I retired, it was way harder than anybody told me or to separate from that tribe. And I found myself in the winter when I'm locked in the house, writing out my own journal entries to polish them, to like leave something behind for family someday. And a friend of mine told me, you should polish up one of those chapters and publish it. So I did. I published Glass Mountain for like $4. And it just figured, well, this will be the end of it. I kind of get my story out and then get some criticism and then go on with my life. And I just got the best feedback from people. I mean, I got remarkable feedback, and most people said, well, when's the rest of it? Some people even said, well, write one of these write a mission every couple months. And so I kept writing until I had about 13 missions written out. And I got to about, I don't remember, 250, 300 pages. I can't remember. And just thought, let's package this whole thing up. And it's chronological order. It's one of my first missions up until one of my last missions. And yeah.
That's remarkable too, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, what's that?
Just keeping track. I mean, I was on SWAT as well. And I wish, looking back, I had kept a journal and kept track of things. But for you to do that, it's just, it's remarkable to go back and
God had a
relive all
plan
that.
the whole time.
Yeah.
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 Thanks.
Pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I I've got a military background, but I've always been intrigued by like the law enforcement side of things. It's probably why I like being around Jay, and for other reasons. But I was telling you earlier that I listened to your book over the weekend, and I really found it to be phenomenal. And even your narration was really good. I enjoyed that.
Thank you.
But like I had this at the end of it, I told my wife, I was like, my wife's name is Holly, and I told her, I was like, he needs to get this into a movie series. In fact, like it could be the next series for Reacher, and Alan Ritchson could play the part because like I've seen pictures of Jeremy, and like for those who can't see, like he's a big dude. Right? Like Alan Ritchson would be perfect for it, right? Would make a
Thanks, man.
great next series for Reacher. So great book. Definitely recommend folks read it. But I do want to kind of tease out a little bit more relative to the send me aspect of this, because so much that we do as men, I think that's like, I mean, it's almost like a mission statement we all need to grasp onto, of just like, I need to live a life where I'm constantly like, okay, God, where is it? Just send me. I'm ready. I'm willing and I'm ready. Right. And so maybe talk about that a little bit more, of what that's meant to you, maybe on, more specific things, or just in general, or however you like.
I have always loved that scripture. I remember deciding to make it my signature line in the FBI in the early 2000s, probably as early as 2000, 2001. I made it the signature line, and my mom was a Latin teacher. And so I asked her, how would you say, here am I, send me? And it's hic sum me mite. And so I just made it my signature line, partly like I wanted it on my signature line because I wanted people to know that's who I was. But it was an FBI.gov account. And so I always wondered how much backlash there would be. And honestly, like, a lot of people would say, I recognize that. I took Latin in school, and that's Isaiah 6:8. And you're right, it has become very popularized, which I love. But I don't know that everybody thinks about the complexity of Isaiah 6. Isaiah's gone through this amazing interaction with God. And God isn't saying, go be brave, put on armor, and pick up a rifle and go fight the enemy. He's saying, go and testify to these people, and it will harden their hearts.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
produce this remnant. Like, what? I would much rather go into a room of narco terrorists than did what Isaiah did,
Of course you would.
So like sometimes I even think like we need to be careful not to water down the whole story of what Isaiah does in chapter 6, because it's not just him saying, I'll do a brave thing today. It's an overwhelming burden that he says, yep, you can count on me.
Yeah, as I was, kind of reading back through the context of Isaiah 6:8, I really found interesting, before that, it says, woe to me, I am ruined, a man of unclean lips. And how so often when we get ready to like go on mission per se, or do something in the name of the Lord, like have we first kind of got ourselves right and say, hey, I understand I am not all things. I need you for my righteousness. I need you to help me through this. Now I'm ready to be sent, right? Now send me,
Yeah.
versus just doing it all under our own power, which I think is just an amazing thing. Awesome. That's super interesting. We've got tons of content today, so I'm going to skip us ahead to the next part of this. So, early in your life, and you even mentioned it, as we were talking right off the bat, is that you were, mostly raised by your mom. Tell us a bit more about kind of what that early life was like with, basically having a father that was absent, and tell us about how that gap got filled, and, kind of how'd they help you through that time period?
Yeah. I'd love to talk about that. The gap never gets filled. That's always there. So it doesn't mean it's bad, but the gap's never filled. I was really fortunate that I had a mom that loved me, and a big sister that looked after me, even though sometimes she beat the crap out of me. But it changes you to not have a father, and it changes your perspective on like what's a good father, like what's a good and holy father. My dad wasn't bad. I didn't have a dad around that I asked things or that I sought wisdom from. So it was more foreign for me to think about asking wisdom from God, that he would listen so quickly and so easily. But I think the lack of regular father figure in my life actually drove me to wanting a career of service and a, excuse me, wanting a career of service and wanting to be part of a tribe that had standards for me as a man that I had to live up to.
That's good. You know, you know, when you think about it, you talk to almost any man, they all have some level of a father wound that has occurred
Yeah.
in their life, right?
Yeah. Right.
Even like myself, you know, my mom and dad stayed married their entire time. And I look back and there were father wounds that I had that I just never really dealt with. But once I started to understand what it was, because my dad was not perfect, and because he was not perfect, he's not like our Heavenly Father, that those wounds occur and you'll carry them around. And so at some point you end up dealing with those and realizing that you need healing relative to that. And there's only one place that you're going to be healed with that. And so you think about either men who are Christian and just don't even know that that's a thing, or men that are not Christians and don't have that healing at all, how they're walking around like basically with, you know, they're an amputee. They're an emotional amputee in many senses. And I think that's such an important part of our walk, is realizing where those gaps are or where those wounds have been, and letting God take us through those and help heal us in those processes.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Yeah, for me, with my father, I didn't realize a lot of things until after he had passed away. And so I carried a lot of stuff even after that, from mourning to really appreciating the man that he was and the things that he did invest in me. I missed it while he was alive, sadly, and I didn't appreciate it enough. I either wasn't old enough or mature enough that I had missed that. And now, him being gone, a lot of that has been revealed to me. So having to work through that now with him not here, I miss him more than ever. So I think there's a lot of different hurts that we have because we are around imperfect men. He was a great dad and I miss him, and I don't have him anymore to talk to and ask things about and share stories with. And I'm older now, so I understand it a little bit more.
I want to say there was a story in your book about somebody early in your like childhood life that kind of, you were a little bit off track and they got you back on track. Share with us a little bit about that story.
I think it may be when Jay and I talked last time, I didn't get great grades all through grade school. Didn't really see the point. I was distracted and I was bored. And I'd bring home bad grades, and I knew my mom didn't like the bad grades, but I also knew that she didn't like that I didn't clean my room. I didn't really see any consequence to it. And I really loved the aviation and the military and Brotherhood, and I saw all of that culminate as me being a fighter pilot someday. So I really, kind of like Matt, like kind of like you were talking about your brother, he sets aside on something, man, he's in. I was like, that's it. I bought books about aviation. I studied it. I got my pilot's license before I could drive. And I remember talking to it was just a routine meeting with like a school counselor who I think happened to be one of our football coaches, if I remember right. And he said, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I'm going to be a fighter pilot. He's like, no, with those grades, you're not. You're not doing anything with those grades. And I was like, why? What kind of grades do you have to have? And he said, well, for starters, the Air Force has most of the planes and all the coolest ones. And they give most of their pilot slots to Air Force Academy grads. So if you plan on going ROTC or OTS, there's only a handful of slots. If you're serious about this, you got to go to the school where the average ACT is 31 and the average GPA is 4.0.
Hmm.
So I was like, crap. I had my life all planned out and I just didn't know I was totally off track. And then he just said, by the way, you're an 8th grader. Next year, 9th grade starts. Everything is forgiven. None of those C's and D's and B's matter anymore. You start next semester getting straight A's, and I know you can do it, and graduate with straight A's. You got a shot at this. And so I just changed my tune. I was like, yeah, all is forgiven. Fresh. Are you kidding me? Fresh slate. And that was it. I mean, starting my freshman year, straight A's all the way through till the end of high school. So that was a pivotal moment for someone who just took a minute to say, hey, what are you going to do with your life?
Yeah.
And then tell me, oh, you're 14 and you're completely wrong about how this is going to turn out. So, yeah.
That was cool. He was willing to speak some truth into your life.
Yeah. It's amazing. You know, the older I get, the more I start to remember things that happened in my life. And I'm just like, man, God was there the whole time. He was like putting the right people in my life, telling me
Yeah.
the right things. And just so happened I actually listened that time. So thankful for those things now, and um, one of those things you wish you could tell your younger self to pay more attention to. Right, realize that God is there working these things all along the way. He hasn't been apart from us. Just amazing, like a faith building thing to think about that. Awesome. Maybe can you share a story, because I know you have lots of them, where you feel like your ability to like really persevere, overcome, and conquer was like really tested or stretched?
Let me think for a second. I think probably the hardest moments I remember, especially in early childhood, well, early life, was being at the Air Force Academy. Since we just talked about it, I knew that was the place that I needed to go to if I wanted to be a pilot. But I was an okay student. I mean, I pulled off A's in a small school in Oklahoma, and I test well, and I put forth effort. But then I got there and realized I am the dumbest, slowest, fattest person here. It was remarkable to be, I mean, I was second or third in my class in Stillwater High School and set a record for squats when I was 15, and got to the Air Force Academy and just got wrecked by, I'd meet guys that were like, I was the captain of my football team. I got a 36 on the ACT, and I chose the Air Force Academy. And I'm here not only like as an academic scholar, but as, one of our first string running backs.
Athlete.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can barely pass the fitness test. The academics were crushing for me. Everyone has to get a minor in engineering. So whether you like it or not, you're taking aero and astro and engineering mechanics and electrical engineering. It's on top of my regular major. I don't have a great set of lungs. So, and then being at that altitude, I struggled with every fitness test. Then you pour on the room inspections, the straight up hazing, which I talk about a little bit in the book.
Yeah, you were there in the 90s, right?
It's a legit, it's not like they weren't nice to you. It's the legit hazing. And I remember getting my breaking point and thinking, crap, I'm not going to make it. I think maybe a junior. I had this very definitive moment. I remember walking down the hallway and thinking, I'm not going to be able to do this for another year and a half. I can't. I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not smart enough. I'm not fit enough. I'm just barely hanging on. I should just need to think about what it looks like to call my mom and tell her that I didn't cut it.
Wow. Where'd you turn to at that point? Where'd you go from there?
I turned to my faith because I knew I couldn't do it, and I couldn't, but I felt this voice like God telling me, you're right. You can't, but I can. And so the Air Force Academy was not a great experience, but it was a real honor to be there. And it was an amazing education, but it was also, it was 4 years of me being disciplined and finding my own way. And when a lot of my old friends were drifting away in college, I was actually driven closer to the Lord because I realized how weak I was in so many ways. And so I wasn't an amazing athlete or an amazing scholar, an amazing leader. I didn't have that much confidence in myself, but I had a lot of confidence in me being a child of the one true King.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, did you, a lot of us when we go through different trials, we feel really alone.
Mm-hmm.
And did you feel that way at all, or did God just come through?
I felt that way a lot because, at least when I went through, it was a 90% male school. So there were 4,400 cadets and 4,000 of them were men.
Wow.
So it was what you would expect, just a testosterone saturated. And the first couple of years are competitive. It's not, hey, you'll do great, come along. It's, we need to kick out 500 people in your class. They bring in 1,500 freshmen with the goal of only graduating 1,000 officers. So no one's rooting for you. They're like, that guy got cut because he wasn't part of it. So the really small brotherhood I had was 2 or 3 guys in my squadron that were believers. And I think that's part of being a believer is they're like, hey, I know we're in a competition here and I know they're cutting people and we're all at risk, but I hope you make it, brother. Like I hope the most for you. And I really only got that from believers. It reinforced like, this is the tribe I want to be in. Like I want to be a fighter pilot a lot. And I want to be in some sort of warrior tribe. But more than that, I want to be part of a brotherhood where guys are like, I realize that you're not the best, but I choose you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Especially with the character that you bring to it. And, Jeremy, while you were talking, really made me think about the verse in Psalm that's, I think, 34:18. It's the Lord is close to the brokenhearted.
Yeah.
And how so often in life, like we want this closer relationship with God, yet the moment that we're required to persevere, overcome, and conquer, things get hard. Like too many people just want to like go away, like avoid it, right? And it's like,
Hmm.
no, that is the moment where like you have a chance to like draw even closer to God, because you're going to like your faith is going to be increased, because if you'll just lean in and let Him help you through it, like you're going to come out the other side and you'll know that God was there with you. And so it's like almost the thing that it's what the devil wants us to do, right? To
Hmm.
just avoid it and go away and not get that faith increase, because you choose to kind of persevere through those times and say, God, I can't do it on my own.
You're
You're
right.
going to be with me. And then He does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And was that the turning point for you? Because I know, looking back on myself, there was a lot of times where I just kind of gave up because I didn't think it just wasn't going to work, and I wasn't trusting God. Why do we do that? Was that a turning point for you in this whole schooling aspect when you realized you couldn't do it by yourself?
I don't know that there was one short pivotal turning point. It was more like a progressive revelation. Like God was revealing Himself to me over the course of years, and there would be little moments where I would realize, oh yeah, this is yet another way that He's teaching me that I can't do this on my own. And it might be from just it was, academics, fitness, leadership training, the Brotherhood that I surrounded myself with. That was one of those moments where I felt like I was in crisis and I was going to fail. But it was over those whole 4 years, I think, and more, right? I think really over my whole life, it's been a progressively God
Yeah.
showing Himself to me.
Isn't that interesting though, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, especially after, listening to your book, it's like so often God is taking us on this journey and we have no clue what the next step is. Like we think it's, I'm gonna be a fighter pilot, right?
Right.
It's like, no, I need you in that environment
Mm.
with you adequately motivated because you want something, but I'm going to use it for something totally different that you couldn't even, have guessed was going to occur. It's like, I'm going to take you through this and you're going to be successful. I'm going to take you through this and you're going to be successful, right? And just getting you ready for something that you have no idea what's coming in the future relative to.
That's right.
Yeah, because law enforcement was never on your radar, right? Like that wasn't really, you wanted to be a pilot, and all those things kind of just opportunities presented themselves, right?
Right. Absolutely. And Matt, your point is great. Going there with the goal of being a fighter pilot was me as a young man telling God, this is what I intend to do with my life. Now bless me with
I'm
it.
telling you.
Yeah. And then I when I took the first vision exam to get in to the Air Force Academy, I flunked it. I was 20/25 in my left eye, and they said, no, thanks. We have so many people applying that are equally as good as you. Why would we take someone with 20/25 vision? And I went back. I'm kind of a scrapper. I went back through and I figured out at like 15, 16 years old that they didn't dilate my eyes properly when they did the exam. And so I wrote a letter to Dobmerb and I told him, this is a high school kid. I wrote him a letter, I hand wrote a letter and said, just so you know, the test was done wrong, mistakes happen. Maybe that had to do with why my vision did. And then meanwhile, I started doing vision exercises over the course of months. And I improved my vision to 20/20.
What?
Wow.
Got my slot into the academy, got a guaranteed pilot slot.
Wow.
Then I get busted in the head during a hall brawl, which is where the upperclassmen beat the crap out of freshmen. And I saw floaters, like black spots that wouldn't go away. He hit me so hard in the head that it like knocked stuff loose in my eyeballs.
Hall brawl.
They took away my pilot slot. I had to fight to get that back. Then I joined in the Fat and Happy Reagan era, and during the Clinton era, they just rip away all these pilot slots. There was going to be 850 slots. I had a guaranteed pilot slot, and they just called us in and said, listen, 650 of you are not getting your guaranteed pilot slots.
Golly.
So I started fighting for that, right? Just banging my head against this is what I'll do with my life. My vision goes, I get a waiver for 20/60. My vision goes below 20/60, fighting for a waiver for that. And then I finally get in the active duty Air Force, still fighting for this, and I get thyroid disease. And they're like, we might throw you out of the Air Force altogether. So Matt, to your point, this whole time I'm thinking, God, what is wrong with you? Don't you know what I want? And now I'm like, if God had decided in His perfect wisdom to go, hey, Jeremy, I'm going to make you an FBI sniper. You're going to be great at it. I'd have been like, oh, I had no idea. Okay, now I get it. But for those years, I remember thinking, why can't I get a break? Because you're right. But all those struggles of fighting for something I thought was supposed to be the path for my life changed who I became when I became an FBI agent.
Real quick, tell us what a hall brawl is. We need a good short here.
Again, when I went through, it was 90% men, and so they'd have a hall brawl, and I have to back it up a little bit. The freshmen, it's basically basic training for 12 straight months. You can't look at anybody in the eye. You have to memorize their name, their rank, their date of birth. As you go down the hall, you have to greet everyone by name. Any one of the upperclassmen can stop you and drop you for push-ups. Honestly, any of them can just wake you up in the middle of the night, take you for a run, ruin your room, get you out for a room inspection. During the room inspection, grind their heel into your shoe and then tell you your shoes weren't polished properly. And it is a beating down to the core of who you are for 12 months. And every once in a while, I don't know why, the upperclassmen would declare a hall brawl. Everyone would come out in the hall, just whatever you were wearing, PT gears, in slippers, whatever, and everyone fought. And the thing was, the freshmen were allowed to throw down. Let's not talk about the fact we're outnumbered 3-1 by the sophomores, juniors, and seniors. But I remember wrestling this football player, me and like 4 of my best buddies. This guy was just always hazing us, and this is our one moment. So we're going to try to pin him to the ground.
Thrash him.
We're going to duct tape this guy. That was the plan. And then drag him out into the quad, which something back then we called nuking and we would keep, it's a weird story, dude. We'd keep and this is a tradition, we'd keep like the milk cartons from Chow Hall and put just orange juice and tomato sauce and ketchup, and then we'd hide it for like a month until it was rancid.
Gosh.
And even the upperclassmen kind of knew if someone was way, way beyond the pale, they're like, the freshmen are going to nuke this dude. We're just going to let it happen. But we were going to duct tape this dude, gigantic linebacker, get him out there, tie him to a tree, and we were going to nuke him, pour this crap on him. And everybody just kind of gets the picture. And he just drove my head into the wall like it was so much cantaloupe. I remember there's 4 of us, and I thought, I've got him. And I'm a pretty strong guy, and he just smashed my head into the wall so hard that I just permanently saw like black spots.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that was the first time I lost my pilot qualification. Trying to fight an enormous senior linebacker.
Great story.
We had one of our last episodes. We interviewed a buddy of ours that was a hockey player, and we think his episode on hockey fights is going to go viral. So like this will be the viral.
Look at yeah, another one.
That gotta be. All right. Awesome. So speaking of some testing and stretching, let's kind of get into some of the more brotherhood aspect of kind of one of the core reasons why we wanted to chat today, given your background is, I think all 3 of us have had lots of experiences where like life does get tough, and like you hear it in our language. We talk about a brotherhood, we talk about teammates, we talk about, kind of that tribe, those people who are really, really close to you and how important that is. And so maybe just some opening comments on, from a, especially given your career in the FBI, like what does that look like in the FBI? Like what does that brotherhood really look like?
You think that was one of the things that drew me to the SWAT team right away. I mean, I love outdoor stuff, and I love teamwork events, and I love sniper craft, all of that. But I saw the way the team guys took care of each other. And it was on and off the field. And then I experienced that when I was lucky enough to get on the team. And I kind of write a little bit about this in the book too. I mean, we put Christmas lights up on a brother's home while he was deployed to Afghanistan, and sent gifts to, one of my buddy's kids who was in the hospital. They thought he had a brain tumor. And the Bureau was a great organization and really full of the finest people I've ever met. But I didn't experience that kind of brotherhood anywhere like I did on the SWAT team. And it so happens the SWAT team was mostly believers. They're mostly Christians. I do think that's a big part of it, but cool. It was also
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think that we're drawn to a life of service. think it feels normal to be in a tribe that would sacrifice. And I mean, we're called in the scriptures to bear each other's burdens and fulfill the law of Christ. It feels normal to have a group of men that are like, hey, how are you doing? Well, I got you. Let me help you with this. Let me put up Christmas lights for you when you're not home. Just the same as to say, hey, listen, while you're breaching covering left, I'm going to flashbang the right side of the room and put a shield up. They're like, I've got you when people are fighting us and when it's just your wife is sad because you're not home for Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really made me, I guess one of the thoughts I have relative to this is, in your book, you talked about a scenario, and I think it had to do with like Uptown was part of it, and then a guy named David. And I remember you saying very clearly that David was a bold Christian and that he was the most trusted agent on the entire team. And I just remember thinking that's a good point, that, when you're a bold Christian, not just like a weak, mediocre Christian, when you're a bold Christian and you're very clear about what you believe and what's important to you and the characteristics of who you are, like that just breeds trust, because you're
Yeah.
not fake. Like everybody knows, like I know exactly what I'm going to get with that guy. Even if I don't agree
Yeah.
with what he believes in, I know what I'm going to get with that guy. And I wonder if that's part of, like, from a SWAT team perspective, is that kind of person just makes for a good teammate. And that's what ends up making you up for a good SWAT team, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that was my experience as well. It's just you could rely on these guys. You were going to dangerous places together. You were growing through adversity. And that was such an amazing thing to be a part of, to have other men that thought the same way, believed the same things, had your back, were willing to step in the gap, as we say, willing to, step down that hallway of an unknown. Was You couldn't replicate that anywhere else. It was just it was so great, and I miss it.
Yeah.
It almost makes me wonder, especially as I'm thinking back more about like some of the operations from your book, like a lot of those scenarios, you're like almost called to do things that you're not capable of in the natural, that put you in a very dangerous situation. And just again, from a teaming perspective, like, I want the guy who's going to be able to surge through that, not because they're crazy, like the crazy guy who's willing to go in and do something really dumb, right? I want somebody who's like, I don't feel comfortable going to that, but I know that God's with me, and then I'm going to be able to go do it. And like, that's a different, like, kind of crazy in a sense, right? To go put
Right.
yourself in those environments.
Right.
I think
I've got one question I've got is what are some traits of a brother or a teammate that learn to value the most or appreciate the most?
For me, I value probably transparency and vulnerability more than almost anything else. To be able to know like the real guy, because it's nice to know the facade that you present to the world. And I recognize that men often are required to present a facade, but then to let me know that you're as broken and messed up as I am and trying to figure it out too, I feel like that swings open these saloon doors of being able to really engage in brotherhood. I can be fully known because you trusted me with the fact that you're struggling in your marriage or whatever the thing is. And I'm like, oh, you're the lead breacher on our team and one of the toughest guys I know. And you got flaws. And so you've invited me in to share that with, and now I feel like I want to share that back with you. So, and I did experience that a lot. I think there's a responsibility that I think men do have to put on a facade, and it's appropriate sometimes. And if you're downrange or you're in an emergency room as an ER doc, or you're putting out fires in a forest, there's a time where you need to say, I've got this. You can count on me. I'll get the job done. We're going to make it out of this fine, even if you don't believe it. And I think that's healthy. Like we have a responsibility to say, I'll take the fall for this. I'm in charge of this. I will bring you home. And then it's really hard to switch that off just a couple hours later in the locker room when you're taking off your gear, and then be able to say, how you doing, man? Fine. How are you? Fine. Cool. See you tomorrow. How are you really doing? Well, actually, Michelle and I are separated. Like, okay, let's stay behind and talk, right? Because you'll be better downrange tomorrow having gotten this off your chest, and I'll be better downrange tomorrow. So I don't think it's bad that men aren't always vulnerable. It's when you're never vulnerable that you don't invite in good friendships.
Yeah, I like that point about sometimes we put on a facade, and I'll just kind of frame it a little bit differently. There's kind of like a leadership trait that somebody can have where, they say you need to look like a duck when you're in certain environments. On top of the water, everything is perfect. You're just like, I'm locked in. I know exactly what I'm doing. Under the water, man, you're like paddling like crazy because you know what's really going on, but you need to bring that stability to the team and say, hey, I may have a lot going on in my head, but I'm going to hold us steady and bring some stability what you got going on. The other thing is the vulnerability aspect. I think that is like probably the top trait for any kind of brotherhood or bonding that you have between men. And it's a sense of, a buddy of mine used to say, you need to get to the point with other men that are going to be close to you where it's almost like I'm going to lay this knife on a table that you can go harm me with, so information that you could harm me with, and then I'm going to get comfortable turning around backwards, right? To where I know you could do harm with me with this, but because I trust you that much, I'm doing it. And we see that whether it's in law enforcement or especially in military, like when you go through hard things, often when you go through the hard things, stuff gets squeezed, something comes out, and you're being vulnerable with other men. They're seeing who the real you is, and it just, even though in our minds we think that vulnerability is like being weak, it's like it's actually the exact opposite effect. Because now it's like, well, I know where they struggle and they have weaknesses. I also see their strengths, but now we can better, be paired with each other to do great things together as a team. Okay, what about so one of the more interesting parts of the book, or another interesting part was there's a lot of nicknames in the book.
Just love it. It's the
Like
best.
like a lot of nicknames that I won't name all of them, but there's some good ones there. I remember like Default and Needle Knee, or a couple of them were some extra good nicknames, and we won't describe what those are, but
Yeah.
they're all good. So I thought about this from a perspective of like, most, like if you went into like most groups of men where there's like these really tight, strong connections, like nicknames is actually a pretty common thing. And so, like, what do you see as like, one of the connection points or the purpose of having nicknames in a sense relative to building brotherhood?
I think for us, it was you belong to this pack now. We choose you, and you belong here. And it was also, we are not going to sugarcoat anything with you. You are not the best guy on the team. None of us is the best guy on the team. And so here's your slightly awkward nickname it is simultaneously probably a reminder of something dumb you did or a flaw you have.
Yeah.
And also a term of endearment that says, we choose you, you'll always have a home here. So guys loved getting their nick. I did a lot. I didn't do all of them. I did a lot of them. And I embroidered the multicam Velcro. That was our team's tradition, was that you would put your name on the back of your helmet in Velcro. And you could see guys get called up and you'd tell them like, all right, here's what you did. Probably not the smartest thing we've ever seen. And also and so you can almost see when I'd call them forward in the team room. I'd be like, hey, Joe, front and center, come up here. And everyone would already start cheering. Like they knew it. Like, we're going to make fun of you and accept you into this brotherhood at the same time. So here's the thing you need to hear. You are flawed, and we choose you anyway.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's what I like about the whole thing. People in our groups, some people would get offended if you make fun of them
Yeah.
who weren't in law enforcement or the military. It's like, no, if people aren't making fun of me in my group or giving me nicknames, then I am not liked or respected, and I can't have that. Like I cherish that. I miss that. I don't have that really anymore unless I go see the guys back at the schoolhouse or, my normal work is 1,000 miles away. So unless I'm with them, which I enjoy because I know there's going to be a bunch of stupid banter that I love and miss, then you're really missing out on that bonding aspect. And that, just like you said, you're flawed and you can't do it by yourself, but we choose you. And that's just an amazing thing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that, nicknames that stick are nicknames that are given with an earned authority to give them and received with a good story behind them, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's always like a point of memory or something happened and that's how you got that nickname. And everybody's gonna remember that thing that happened and how you were a part of it.
I got one question I didn't ask you, but I know you said MacGruber was the bomb technician. Did he actually earn that, or did he just get it because he was a bomb?
He rejected it from the beginning and does to this day.
Okay, so
He
that makes sense that he
he was
got it.
like, "Who are you? Who's MacGruber? Like
You know,
you.
you are.
You talk about bombs all the time, and it's funny." And he'd walk in the room, and people would just go, "MacGruber," and he'd look around like, "Why is that my call sign?"
That's so good. Yeah. That's it. You're it.
You've been better off just accepting MacGruber
That's right. You could
simply
have just
because
gone
you're
with
a
it.
bomb tech than making us come up with, yeah. I don't know if he ever got a different one because I have retired, but
That's
he
great.
rejected. Yeah. When guys rejected, it says a little bit of something about him, about them. I'm not talking about him, but there were guys that we give them a call sign and they're like, I won't answer to that. So you won't submit to the pack. Like this is us saying you're on the team and you've been certified and you've gone to school and you got the patch and you get the weapons that we get to carry and all the certain things. But the thing that you haven't gone through yet is our gauntlet of choosing you. You can be on the team and not be chosen. It happens sometimes. The guys just pass everything and they're pretty good at everything. Great tacticians, great marksmen, a great medic, a skilled bomb tech. And like, we need your skill set and we don't have a reason not to have you. But also, you don't come to lunch with the guys. You don't go out to hang Christmas lights with us. You haven't, I didn't like my call sign, but I was so tickled that the team leader was like, this is what we call you now. Because I knew that I had passed some threshold to becoming part of the Brotherhood that wasn't in the regulations. It was written by the men on the team.
So tell us about your nickname and how you got it.
Mine's not very good. I get crap some from my teammates because they're like, how come only like the senior guys have cool call signs? And I tell them like, when I got it, which was like 2000, I just wrote these obnoxious emails to the team. Part of it was when I got on the team, there just for whatever reason weren't very many firearms instructors that were operators. And for the most part, operators don't want non-operator firearms instructors giving them training.
Right.
So we leaned on our own firearms instructors organically to train. And it just so happened that Little Toe, who was the next most junior guy, he was more senior than me. He was a firearms instructor. I was a firearms instructor. And pretty much everyone else on the team was senior to us by decades, years or decades. But the team leader, Big Toe, would tell me, all right, Money, I need you to put together firearms training for next week. And I thought, I'm 31 years old, been on the team for a year or two. How am I going to teach with humility? I am supremely confident in my ability to shoot. I've always been a good shooter and I love practicing it. So I had no problem teaching or even showing the guys, I can shoot all of these. I can do this. But to be the young kid that just barely got his call sign. So all that background to say, I would write emails to the team and I would say, we're going to do firearms training 0600 tomorrow. You're going to need your long gun, your pistol. We're going to start out wearing our armor. I sound like I'm being their boss. So I would throw in a lot of jokes about, hey, paper cut warriors or Al-Qaeda fighters. And I'd say silly things or, talk about how we were going to get lunch and get burritos and then come back and be miserable. And then I always signed my emails with just the most obnoxious name I could think of as a way of showing humility to these guys. So I'm like, be there at 0600, but at the beginning and at the end, I would say I like DJ Def Freshness, MC Stank Money. I would just come up with like the most obnoxious kind of, I don't know. And so just one of them, I think it was like J Money Stank Freshness, I think. And the next time the team leader emailed me, he didn't say, hey, Jeremy. He said, hey, J Money. I was like, oh no.
That's it.
I did not see that coming. I just got locked in with my fake rapper name forever. And then it just got shortened down to Money by a lot of guys. A lot of guys called me J Money, but I mean, I did love it because I had a new name.
Yeah. That's the thing with a lot of the teams. I know with HRT, and I wasn't on HRT, but I heard that there was a picnic after you got through training there was a picnic associated with the team, and that was to see if you were going to fit in or not. And some people failed the picnic, just like some people failed the hall brawl. So, for you guys out there, if you want to fit in with the team, you need to fit in with the team.
So was the nickname was for you guys, was that kind of the, hey, now you've really made it. Now you're like more socially
Codified.
adopted into the thing?
Well, and because I sort of became the official giver of nicknames on our team.
You perfected it, bro. Like your description in the story, it was perfected.
There were guys that they would pick up a nickname, but we weren't quite sure yet. But excuse me, I talk a little bit about in the book. There was a former Navy SEAL on our team, and he wanted to be called Red because that's what he wanted to be called. And he said that's what the guys used to call him on the team. Like rule number one, most of us came from some other high risk, high stress team environment. No one cares. Like you left the SEALs to come here. I left OSI to come here. That dude left the Marshals to come here. No one cares back on the team. So we started calling him we called him Sailor Jerry for a little bit. And we called him Flounder for a little bit. He hated it so much. But we were all just kind of like, you were talking about the picnic. We were all just kind of in the back room, like, how's he going to react? Because if he was just like, yeah, Roger that, Flounder, that's a good one, guys.
Flounder.
Like, I need just enough humility out of you to realize that we're a team that puts each other last every time. And if you're worried about looking or sounding cool, your mind's in the wrong place, and it's going to hurt us when we're downrange and there's real danger.
Amen.
So there were times where I didn't embroider it, and I would talk to the other senior team leaders and say, hey, I think it's time we lock down, default. And they were like, yeah, it's done. Like that's his name. And so we'd all agree on it, and I'd embroider it and I'd give it to him. But some of the guys they'd say, hey, how come I don't have one yet? And sometimes it was because, well, we tried to give you one and you rejected it. Or we're just not sure what to call you yet, and there's no timeline on that. But guys did, as much as they would complain about their call sign, other guys, I could hear them in the locker room saying, well, I've been on the team longer than that guy, and I don't have my name tape for my helmet yet.
Interesting.
Yeah, it matters.
What did you end up calling Flounder?
I won't say. He didn't like anything but red.
Should call him Orange or something.
My daughter helped me edit the book when she was doing her undergrad stuff. She just really, really loves literature, and she just has an eye for story writing and grammar. And so every time I finished a chapter, I'd let her read it, and she'd kind of pick through and say, I don't know if you should say this, or this might offend someone, or maybe this is a little too negative, And she did ask me, she's like, how's this former Navy SEAL guy gonna feel about being called Flounder? And I'm like, he's going to be super, super pissed about it.
It's exactly what I was looking for.
Super pissed. So she convinced me. She's like, well, why don't you give him multiple nicknames in the book so that he has Red and he hadn't, And I do. I love that dude. Solid gunfighter and a good guy. But we couldn't ever really come up with a solid nickname for him because he wanted to help pick. So
interesting.
Yeah, I told Jay this before, but I got to spend like a half a day with the local police department and their SWAT team and just kind of seeing what they get to do. And one of the questions that the small group of us ended up asking them was like, it's clear like, there's a process to get on the team, and people come on, but like, when do you feel like it's really, really solidified and they're officially like all in part of the team? And they said, that's a great question. And it's very clear on our side, and everybody knows exactly when it is. They said, folks come on, but the key is when they get a hug at the start of every meeting and at the end of every departure, that's when they know they're on the team. Like the new guys don't get like they're not handshake or something like that, but like full on man hug is when like they feel like, hey, I'm fully committed, and that's not, you don't get to go give the hug, it's you get the hug. And that's when they know that they're now like really in on the team. They're not just a member, right?
I love that.
I thought
That's
that was
very cool.
really intriguing.
Yeah.
Well, good. Maybe a couple others here. So, kind of the SWAT aspect of this, but also, into just general like spiritual brotherhood as well. Clearly on, high performing teams, there has to be an element of accountability. right? And so, what does accountability look like on something like SWAT, and then what should that look like in our spiritual lives when we have our own brotherhood and accountability?
So I immediately, when I hear your question, I thought of spiritual accountability and professional accountability. I could talk about both of them, but if you had one that you wanted to talk about
Well,
first.
maybe just especially for those who maybe don't have a law enforcement or military background. Like when I was thinking about this, I thought about it from the perspective of just doing AARs, after action reviews, with something and the accountability aspect of that, because it creates a vulnerability as well, right? But then let's quickly shift to the spiritual side of this as well.
Yeah. So you brought up AARs, after action reports, or sometimes called hot washes, where pretty quickly after a high risk encounter, everyone huddles and talks through. We did this, we did this, we did this. What could we have done better? And it has to be a very healthy attitude of no one gets to be offended. No one openly gets to criticize anyone. You got to be careful that you don't say, well, I felt like we got channelized through these two buildings and there could have been a crossfire and a lot of people, I felt like that was a bad call by the team leader. Yeah, you know what? You probably should take 5 seconds and word that properly. Here's what I think we could have done better. I have questions about whether or not, why did the team leader choose to do it that way? So there's a accountability. You're going to be accountable, but you also are going to show each other respect. And that wasn't just hot washes and AARs. There was a couple times where we had to hold guys accountable, just a couple of team leaders alone with one operator, and let them know you passed all the qualifications you got on the team. You've gotten certified. Everyone likes you. Everything's fine. You haven't been making it to training. Yeah, but I'd never miss an ops, boss. I'd always be there. Oh, I know you'd never miss an op. Missing training is more important than missing. If you're missing training, I kind of want you to miss the ops, right? If you show up and you don't know the new check down procedure we're doing when we pan a threshold, you can get us all killed. Well, I'm getting married and my fiance has been really busy and we've been planning all this. I get it. That's fair. What would you think about stepping off the team for 6 months? Well, I can't believe you would say that. Like how, it would usually take, it's not biblical, but it's a little bit out of like Timothy and Titus. Like you'd take 2 or 3 and say, our perspective is you're not making it to training. And when you do come to training, you're not all in and we like you. Would you like to fix that? And they can say, yeah, absolutely. Here's how I'm going to do it. And we've had a couple times where guys said, are you kicking me off the team? We said, no, but as a member of the team, right? Valued and trusted and important. We need to know what it looks like from now on. Does it look like you coming to training? We're not asking you not to prepare your wedding, but can you do both of those? I there were guys that you could say we kicked off the team, but we never told a guy you're done, don't come back, really. Maybe once we did. But 99% of the time we sat down with them and said, well, how do you feel about how you're performing on the team? Do you think you're providing what the team needs from you? Do we provide you with what you need? And a lot of them would go, oh, crap. I got to answer this honestly, and I have not been there for you guys. And I don't know how I can do it. So I'll turn my gear in. So,
wow.
Yeah. And I would rather have that environment than, having been at the Air Force Academy where they actively kick people out, or, I did some preliminary flight training at the Air Force and they're actively looking to kick people out. Like Jay knows, at Quantico, it was the opposite. It was like, you're here, we like you, we're invested in you. You got a bad grade on your last law exam about Ponzi schemes. You think you can retake that and get an A in the next 3 days?
College.
Right? And you're like, yeah, you tell me what I need. And they're like, well, this is exactly our standard. We'd love it if you could meet that standard and stay here. So I like that about the team. We weren't trying to chase guys off, but we would also tell them, you're not where we need you to be.
Right.
How can you fix that?
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it's interesting, in a very professional world, how high performers respond pretty well to that. Even when they know that they're not meeting the standard, they'll, essentially self-eliminate because they're like, hey, I don't want to ever be viewed as the guy who's not meeting the mark and pulling everybody else down. I will pull myself off to go do that. But kind of transitioning to the spiritual side of that, like I don't know, it's sometimes I get frustrated that like men don't have any accountability or they're not like even open to receiving that kind of thing. And I think part of the openness to receiving it is like, quite frankly, they just don't have close enough relationships to somebody that they feel comfortable enough with to almost like, hey, I'm going to deliver some tough news to you because I love you enough to help you to move forward. Right. I just wonder how we maybe foster that better in a spiritual sense.
Yeah, I think men are afraid to let people in. Like it's hard to be that, as you said, Jeremy, vulnerable. It's hard to trust people. And I don't know why we go there. We just, especially in our faith, I look when I'm traveling or going places, when I see another Christian, nowadays I'm kind of leery because some people call themselves Christians and they're not. But when you get to know them and hey, this person is a true a Christ follower,
Mm-hmm.
and I can get behind what he's saying, and you have that instant connection with our faith, which is so amazing. But we as men, and I don't know if that's just because of culture today, but we're struggling with the fact that we can't let other men into our lives, and we'd rather fight these battles by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's so scary to be vulnerable, and it is so easy, especially if you are in a high risk job environment, whether it's a surgeon or whatever. It feels weird to let your guard down that maybe people wouldn't trust you as much. But I'm an advocate of dropping small hints. I love the mission field. I love going overseas, and since the Bureau trained me as a medic, it was just easy to go give free medicine, and if people were open to the word, to share that with them, or just to let them see like this is how Christians act. They fly around the world to give free medicine just because they love people. But I mean, made me think of a story when I'd probably been on the team maybe 10, 15 years. I was relatively senior, and we got a new guy named Jeff, and he's a great guy. He's a little bit timid. He's a little bit shy at first, but he just seemed like a solid guy. And we were going on probably a 3 or 4 day trip. So we're all out in the garage. We got our crap laid out everywhere, and we're loading gear. Guys are doing weapons checks, and they're putting their personal gear, and we're pairing up, cramming vehicles full of stuff. And I look over, I kind of always watch the new guys. Like, I'm not going to baby them, but I also want to see if they need anything. And then I can go over and say, hey, are you struggling with this? Can I help you with that? So just kind of watching him from behind the armored vehicle. And I see him pull out his backpack, and he takes out his Bible, and he opened up his rifle case, and he weapons checks his rifle. He makes it sure it's condition 4, clean and ready, puts it in, and then he sets his Bible in with it, and he zips it shut. And I was like, here's an opportunity. Why not? Like, I don't know this dude's belief system, but as I walked by casually, and I was like, Jeff, you doing it right? He's like, yes, sir. I said, I like that you keep your sword with your machine gun. And he just smiled at me like, there's a believer on the team, right? And I was sort of like, I struggle to be really bold because I don't know, I can be a real coward when it comes to being like really espousing my faith. But probably a month or so later, we show up at headquarters at the same time, and you got to punch your code in to get in the door and swipe your card and all this stuff. And he's punching it in, and I'm basically just waiting for him to open the door. And he just turned to me, and he said, Jeremy, how do you say it? He said, Jeremy, how's your walk?
Mm.
I was like, wow, I'm pretty good, but I need a minute to actually answer you honestly like that. And he's like, if there's someplace you're struggling, I want to be praying for you. So I feel like I opened this little window for this new operator by joking about his sword and his machine gun. And he took that with doors wide open. Yeah. And then the next time we talk, he's like, I'm struggling with this, and I'd like prayer for this. And I was like, I'm going to pray for you every night at 6:00 about that. And we developed this bond as believers. It started with a hint, and it was followed up by vulnerability, and then it turned into true brotherhood.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things you said really stood out to me, that I think often like we desire kind of that level of vulnerability and intimacy, but we're always like, you first. Like, when in reality it's like, hey, if we'll be vulnerable ourselves, which there's risk in that, but like, is there really? I'm like, is there really risk in you being vulnerable? Like, so what if they know? Like, I mean, what's the worst they're going to be able to do, right?
Yeah.
It's just so it's amazing how the devil will give you those thoughts of just, don't do this. This isn't good for you, and it's like, no, it's a good step to take. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we let our pride get in the way. We think, they're going to think I'm weak, or I'm not really the Christian I should be or I claim to be. That's difficult, and you need the right person to be able to confide that to, and it's not easy.
But, I think one of the other aspects of like kind of building this brotherhood in your, your kind of spiritual community, and I think you brought it out a little bit in your book, Jeremy, is talking about like encouraging words to people, right? Like how do you start to build that bridge? I think we could all do better at encouraging each other, right? And I think you had told the story about something that Mackie said to you,
Hmm.
and you said it just meant the world to me. And I think it was maybe after the Glass Mountain incident or something. Maybe share just a little bit of that so that folks know kind of what I'm talking about, and like what did he say that really shifted things for you or just meant something to you?
Yeah. Well, to give a very, very brief background for the listeners, we were on a surveillance reconnaissance mission for a bomber that had detonated a bomb in Florida, and we were on top of the mountain watching him when, after a series of events, it broke into a gunfight. He drew an AK-47. He started firing at my teammates, and in that instant that I saw him leveling the rifle, I fired and struck him. Very surrealistic. From 200 yards away at the top of a mesa. Really just doesn't seem like something that you would do outside something in the movies. And cycled the bolt on my rifle and was thinking about whether or not I needed to shoot him a second time. If he was done fighting us, and when I just had a second to breathe, Mackie just said, "Good hit." And I thought, I just said, "What?" I wanted to look over my shoulder at him and say, "What?" But I stayed on glass and I was looking at this guy to see if he was going to keep shooting at my teammates. And he just said, "Good." He said, "Good shot." And then he said, "Good hit." And partly, like, he's a solid dude and he's a solid gunfighter. He was saying, you put him down. And he was also like, "Well done." And after that, we went into sort of investigative mode where no one talks to anybody. We're not going to talk, right? You don't want to contaminate each other's stories. And so that little thing, like my sniper teammate sitting next to me after being up for 31 hours on top of a mesa, hunting terrorists all night long, and he just said, "Hey, good hit," meant the world to me.
Awesome.
It goes back to the verse, the power of life and death is in the tongue. And I think a lot of times we try to avoid the power of death aspect of the tongue, of how we talk in a negative way. But I think what we could do just better at is speaking more life over people. A lot of that is just encouraging words. And I know the men that have been close to me in my life, when they encourage me, it means the world to me. I don't always tell them that, but it does. Like I remember those things.
Well, especially Jeremy, it was a lethal confrontation, and you were also having to make a decision that there's consequences, right? And for someone next to you to give you hope and encouragement that, hey, that was good. It's kind of like, hey, chill out, relax. This is good. We're going to move forward. Like those are words of freedom and truth. And we do need to. I always say, I want to see, my people that I mentor and friends. I want to see them win. Like I want to do and say things and encourage them and do whatever I can to help them win at life.
Well, for the listeners out there, I know we have a small window of a picture here, but Jeremy is a big physical guy. Just look at the back of his book. It's there somewhere. But we know that you obviously do a lot of physical training, but we also know that the Bible tells us that we're to invest into spiritual training. Maybe just share a little bit about, like, what does that look like for you? What's your norm spiritual training look like, so that you can keep your relationship with God where it needs to be?
I feel like I need to have habits. I need to make things regular in my life, not when I feel like reading the word or worshiping or volunteering. I need to program it in so that it's part of who I am. So I program in volunteering because I think it's critical for me to show others that that's how followers of Christ act. And I do actually enjoy reading the word. I didn't always, but I'm in a season of my life where I really enjoy it, but I still program it, where I get up and I make a cup of coffee and I read the word, and I know exactly what I'm going to read the next day. And as soon as I finish a plan or a chapter, I start on the next one. So, and I'll tell you what, something I've really enjoyed recently, my life group and we read The Common Rule. I can't remember the author, It's a good book. He talks about just setting these like daily, weekly, and monthly habits in your life. And one of them that I really wasn't interested in at first was praying on your knees 3
Mm.
times a day.
Mm.
And so I challenged myself to do it. Middle of the day is tough. It's hard to pull that off, but it was really easy to do it first thing in the morning, slip out of bed, put my knees on the cold, hard tile floor, and say my prayers there in a real, like my physical posture helps me with my emotional posture. And then I do it at the end of the day too, before I bed. I actually get on my knees. And so that habit of praying on my knees at the beginning and end of the day, scheduling volunteering, scheduling time to meet with other men for discipleship, scheduling my reading of the word. It sounds very legalistic, but it's not at all. Like I schedule when I work out. I know that tomorrow is leg day, right? I can tell you what I'm going to be doing 3 days after that. I can tell you what rifle I'm going to be shooting a couple days from now at a match and what rounds. I'm like, I plan ahead. It's not being legalistic. It's just so,
You
yeah.
care enough about it to make it a regular part of your day every day, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
It's a
easy to get
priority. You
distracted.
schedule things that are a priority, right?
Right. Yeah. I schedule a date with my wife. Doesn't sound very romantic, but we schedule dates.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
you want to make sure it happens,
Right.
right? I don't
Yeah.
want to, oh, I just ran out of time today. Sorry. It's like,
Yeah.
well, maybe you should
Life,
have planned it, right?
life gets in the way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not that outside of those planned events that you also don't spend time with God. It's
Yeah.
just that I'm going to
Yeah.
make sure that I'm doing a minimum amount that I feel moves the needle.
Well, Jesus did the same thing. Like he had a specific place, a specific time that he went and prayed. And
Mhm.
sometimes that was alone, sometimes that was with, his disciples. And so I think that's great. I think we need to do more of that.
All right. Well, let's move into some rapid fire team and faith kind of questions. Um, who was one person who had the biggest impact on your spiritual walk?
It was my mom. All those summers where I would come home and say, and just look her right in the eye and go, "Hey, is the Bible made up or not? Is God real or
Oof.
not?" I remember her
Wow.
pulling over to the side of the road and just going, "Okay," and she just had to speak truth into me. And I valued that she wasn't an evangelist. That's the wrong word. She wasn't a salesman trying to convince me you need to be a Christian because everyone in our family is Christian. She's just like, "Here's why I believe this. Now, what do you think?" That's easily the most pivotal thing in my entire life, is for her to say, "You have the freedom to choose. Here's how I choose." And called me back to the faith.
Yeah. Love it.
Okay, what was one moment you knew God was fighting a battle you couldn't fight?
The first probably 8 years or so that my wife and I dated and were married, she had a terrible gastrointestinal disease that made her really miserable. And I was in the military, and sometimes military health is good and sometimes it's not. She got misdiagnosed a lot. It was having a lot of effect on her health. And I remember praying every single night, "God, heal her. Would you please heal her?" And then after a few months, and then after 2 or 3 years, and then after 6 years, and after 7 years, and after 8 years, I thought, surely he's listening, right? And then some doctor somewhere sent her to another doctor, and then that doctor said, "You should go to the Mayo Clinic." And she went to the Mayo Clinic, and they said, "Not only do we know what you have, we can fix it, and we can fix it without taking a scalpel to you."
Ow.
So, God was there the whole time, guiding that. He just wanted to, it was his perfect timing, So he was fighting that battle, and I could have never fought that. Yeah.
What's one verse you cling to when things get hard?
Probably Matthew 6:34. Why worry about tomorrow? Tomorrow is going to worry about itself.
Yeah.
I think that it helps me so much that, I'm worrying enough about today. The last thing I need to do is ruminate about the things I'm not going to get done at the end of the month. I can stop and say, not only is God in control, but he's given me a skill set to handle a certain amount of stress. And so today I'll tackle today.
Great. One tough lesson learned from doing life alone.
For years, I hid that I struggled pretty terribly with insomnia, especially when I was in the FBI. I still struggle with it sometimes now, but I remember struggling with sleep and just pushing through the lack of sleep. I'd get up and I'd drink 4 cups of coffee first thing in the morning. And then I drink caffeine through the day, and I would try to exercise and make myself tired, but I would get so spun up that I would just lay in bed wide awake. And man, I kept that locked down hard. I didn't tell my teammates. You know, if someone said, you're looking rough, I remember just had bags under my eyes and just like powering through. I got to go to work. We have an arrest planned at my daughter's birthday parties today. And then I got to mow the lawn and just like more caffeine, more caffeine. And I'm fine, right? I'm fine. I can do this. I am tough. More caffeine, please. And I got to a point where I remember telling like my best friends, the guys on the team, my wife, like, I'm not okay. I am trying hard to sleep and I can't sleep. And it wasn't really until like I brought it out into the light. Like it's not some wicked, terrible sin I had, but I had a struggle that I really thought if I can keep this to myself and I can medicate with stimulants, legal stimulants, you know,
Right.
so much caffeine that I can pull this off. And it really needed to, and until it make it normalized to where I'm telling my doctor, telling my friends, and they're like, oh, okay, well, here's what I did. Or even guys going, yeah, me too, man. Like one of my training agent was like, yeah, I sleep about 4 hours a night. Okay, well, let's talk about this all the time then, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's the things that we try to do by ourselves in our own power, in our own right. Just so many life lessons to learn through all of that.
Yeah.
How we're not meant to do life alone. We're not meant to get isolated. That's exactly where the enemy wants us, is isolated, right? So maybe what's one piece of advice for men that are afraid to ask for help?
I would say what helped me was realizing that I have a false perception that other men have it all together. So I walk into church and I just think, man, I'm not cut out for this group. If people really knew the thoughts that I struggle with or the things I've done in my past, they wouldn't love me. And they certainly wouldn't look at me as someone who could teach a Bible study or lead a group of college boys. The advice I would give someone is that everyone around you is struggling. Single man. And when you're in a crowded room of other men or even just a couple intimate friends and you're thinking, I need to cover this up. I need to not be vulnerable. The truth is they're either all thinking the same thing or they're just waiting for you to talk about the thing that you're fighting.
Absolutely true. I'll never forget. I was having a men's small group at the house one time, and before the small group, one of the guys said, "Hey, I've got something I cannot handle anymore. I've got to get off my chest." And I was like, "Hey, I'll open a window kind of towards the end for you to to kind of share with the group." And we got towards the end, and I kept giving him like these kind of easy softballs over
The window.
He just kept not doing anything, and I kind of gave him the eye. And he finally like just, "Hey guys, I gotta let you know I've been struggling," and he said, "I've been struggling using marijuana for like the past 2 years, and my wife doesn't know." All these people, and then like that, three other guys were like, "Man, I'm glad you
Me
said
too.
don't do." Like, I'm right there with you, right? And it's just so amazing how like that quickly. You said it earlier, how like we tend to want to take things that are dark in our lives and hide them. And that's the exact opposite. We need to put them into the light so that God can really deal with them, right? And how freeing that is. So, that'd be my encouragement to those out there, is like, what you're only as dark as the thing that you won't share, right?
Yeah.
In your life. And so let those things out. Do it in a responsible way with people who love you, but it will be better.
Yep.
All right. So maybe what's one practical way to stay connected to your brotherhood? And let's not necessarily talking about like SWAT, but talking about like your local spiritual brotherhood, the guys you spend a lot of time with.
I have with my brotherhood here in a retirement life, I kind of have this joke I make with guys where I'll send them a text and I'll say, hey, we need to have our once a year coffee with no agenda. It's the Jeremy no agenda meeting. Because sometimes I'll call people and they're like, crap, what does he need to talk about? Or what does he know about me? And even though once a year is a joke, because like I want to meet him all the time. So I'll do it several times and I'll say, hey, 2:00 on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, 2 weeks from now, I'll give him like a big window. So like, I know this week is busy and I know next week is busy, but how about 3 weeks from now, we have a Jeremy non-attribution, no agenda meeting. And then I make a point to just talk about whatever. And stuff comes out just from that. And then, I mean, I still think it may not be what you're talking about, but I think it's important as you move through life, you change tribes. If you were former military or former law enforcement or whatever, that tribe always means something to you. I think it's critical to stay in touch with those tribes. One of the ways we do it with my old sniper teammates, we're all in different places physically. and some of us are retired, some of us aren't, but we have a gun chat. And we talk about guns. We geek out hard. Like, I'll be like, well, you think a secant versus a tangent ogive is going to decelerate better in subsonic flight? You know, and they're like, well, are we talking about above or below a G7 BC? You know, I love it, you know? And then every once in a while, I mean, a guy will chime in and say, I just need you guys to know things are going really bad in my marriage. I think we're going to be separated.
Mm,
But if we called that text stream delicate feelings text, or like,
yeah.
sad stories text, right? No, it's freaking gun text, right? It's gun chat.
Yeah.
But gun chat so happens to be a place where guys talk about their vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's good. That's good.
What's one thing you wish you knew 10 years ago about your teammates or your brotherhood that you're in or were a part of?
I'd probably piggyback on that and say, I, as a young man, thought I would find some tribe of brothers, and then that brotherhood, once I was in it, then it would carry me through the rest of my life. It would have been great if I could have gone back to younger me and said, hey, this new tribe is great, and also there's a timer on it. And so every day, remember, this is just, you're borrowing your time in this tribe, and there's going to be other tribes, and you don't have to quit or get kicked out. You just might end up being on a lot of different tribes. My volunteer tribe and the men that are believers in my life are really important right now. It would have been better off if older me would have told younger me, it's not going to last forever. And it's great. It's great that it's not going to last forever.
Yeah, it's for a season. Right?
Yeah, right.
Seasons of life bring needs for new tribes, right? Like
Yeah.
even, you think about it from like a family dynamic standpoint. Like there's a period of life when you have little kids, you probably need some other men who have been through that stage before
Yeah.
to help build a strong tribe there, right? And even from the perspective of, you can think about some of these tribes of like, there's a different role that sometimes you need to play in those. Sometimes like you need to be in a tribe where you can receive a lot because that's the mode of life that you're in and that's what was needed. Other times you need to be in a tribe where you're given like a lot into that tribe and you're the guy who's leading it and you're the guy who's pressing things to move forward and growing the members. So yeah, that's great. Maybe a one last question is, how would you want to be remembered?
Wow. And I hope my legacy is as a believer. And I hope that doesn't negate anything else I've done. I hope that there's some legacy of being a good father and husband and operator, medic, volunteer that stocked shelves at the food pantry. Like, I hope there's some legacy there, but I hope that all of those are because people knew that my faith was in Jesus.
I think there's a lot of men out there that are struggling with all these things that we just talked about. I'm struggling with things myself that I'm working through, and it's just it's a process. And do we trust God or don't we?
Right.
And so I appreciate you talking about your challenges and the things that you've learned over the years in a career that's very demanding and difficult and brings a lot of trauma our way. Even in the military, there's a lot of military guys that might listen to. They have trauma, and at some point, we have to be able to deal with that and work through that so we can continue on with our lives and see what God's going to do with us.
Yeah, I guess Jeremy, I would probably go back to something earlier that I brought up that I'm going to do because I felt that I need to. Is one is to be an encourager, and when I think about one, reading your book, two, talking to you for a long time today, just how enjoyable it was and how much I'm just like, man, that is one impressive guy. What an amazing career. But immediately, like, I'm like checked to say, hey, but just like your academy experience, like that is nothing compared to what God has in the next season of your life. And so like I'm super excited to watch as God continues to do fantastic, amazing, and unplanned things in your life.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you guys. I love that you're being who you are and showing the world that you're Christ followers. And it's not you honking your own horn or pretending like you've got it all together. It's genuine conversation. And I think oriented towards men who particularly seem to struggle with that. I think what you guys are doing is wonderful. Like, it's a fun, easy conversation and about important things, about how to be a man, but like what it looks like to be a man and be a Christ follower at the same time. So I hope to encourage you guys to keep doing this. I think it's something great.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Appreciate it.
Well, before Matt wraps us up, I just want to say again, Get the book, Send Me, Chronicles of an FBI Sniper by Jeremy Redmond. It's a great read, or get the audio book. They're both good, especially if you're driving and listen. Jerry, you know what? It was great, and I'll leave it at this for me, but it reminded me a lot of my career and being on my team. And it reminded me all the fun times, all the not so fun times, the difficult times. But I like the fact that I had other men around me that would challenge me, that were better than me, that I could emulate and strive to be as good, but also would call me out on truth when I was struggling or not doing well, not pulling my weight, and I missed that. So thank you for your story and putting it all together a book. And I look forward to your next, you know, a book, whatever you're writing. I'm looking forward to reading that as well.
Thank you, brother. That means so much to me. I really appreciate that.
All right. Well, we'll close this out with this to those listening. Today, we talked about a lot of interesting stories, some funny stories, some very real stories. And I think these are the kinds of things that we need to share with each other so that we can all learn how to better persevere, overcome, and conquer. And so until next time, let's POC.